Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new video on the cerebral arterial circle, also called the circle of Willis. So in this video we're going to be discussing this very important anastomosis of blood vessels. So let's get into it. What we're going to talk about is, first off, where do we find the circle of Willis, the major vessels that actually compose it. Then we're going to talk about some branches off of that are also important that you will need to know. So we're going to draw it out and discuss it. But before we do it, this is where we will find it. We are looking at the bottom of the brain here. And right here, we will actually find the circle itself and its major branches, of course, associated around here. So one of the things I always like to mention when I discuss this with my students in class is, let's say we got a blockage right here. Let's say right here we had a blockage that happened. Blood that comes in could hit that, go around, and still get to the area supplied by these branches. So it acts as a circle to allow blood to gain access to other locations, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to draw it out, and as we draw it out together, I'm going to ask that you try to draw it with me, and as we do this, we'll learn the branches and discuss it. So we're going to start off with looking at the four or the major branches that compose it and build it. So the thing that makes the circle is, first, blood is mostly coming from the internal carotid artery. So let's draw an internal carotid artery coming in, and right here at the top will be the internal carotid artery, and then some branches that come off of that. So we're going to follow that. Okay. Then what we're going to do is, below that, we're going to draw something like this. Oops. It's trying to, there we go. All right. Then what we want to do is come down from here, split it like that. Okay. Now, then I'm going to change my pen to something a little smaller, and then I'm going to draw this, this, then I'm going to come off and draw up like this, and up like that, and then we're going to draw a line across here. And we have gotten we got the entire circle done. Then we're going to add a couple more vessels. We're going to come on the middle here, and we're going to draw across like this and this. Okay. We're going to come off here and here. And then I'm going to change my pen a little bit smaller, and I'm going to come down like this. Okay. And then I'm going to do these. Okay. So this is our circle of Willis and all the blood vessels that you guys will need to know. So what we're going to do is draw these and label them. And we're going to, since we've drawn it, now we want to label them and make sure we know them anatomically. So we're going to start off with the major vessels that contribute, that make the circle. So starting off, we have these, and I'm going to label this guy right here. This is your internal carotid artery. Internal carotid artery. A period artery. Internal carotid artery. Now, there will be more vessels that help contribute to the cerebral arterial circle, the circle of Willis. Next, let's go ahead and see the anterior cerebral. Now, something that I heard all the time in my human anatomy class when I was a student was, we don't use words we don't need in anatomy. So if there's an anterior cerebral, there must be a posterior cerebral. So here we have our posterior cerebral. Posterior cerebral A period artery. Okay, so now we got our two cerebrals that form the front and back of the circle. Now we have two vessels that are called communicating arteries. Now, the first one we're going to do is the anterior communicating. So that's about the anterior on the front, anterior communicating. Anterior communicating a period artery. Anterior communicating. So if there's an anterior communicating, there must be a posterior communicating. Let's label them right here. The posterior communicating. So again, we don't use words we don't need in anatomy. So anytime we have a vessel that's saying an anterior something, there will be a posterior something. Okay. Now, this makes the circle of Willis, or the cerebral arterial circle. These are the branches that compose it and produce it. Now, what we want to look at next is vessels that are associated to it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and label this large vessel down the middle here, and this is the basilar artery. The basilar artery, a period artery. And then down here, let's label our vertebral artery. A period artery. Now, these kind of get the major things that we can build everything else off of. Now, we have various of these small vessels. I'm going to point to 3 of them here, called pontine arteries. And we'll go ahead and do the pontine. A will be for arteries, just to make things easy to label. Now, on this basilar artery, I have 2 vessels that I want to label. Now, we have a posterior cerebral and anterior cerebral, which we're going to talk about, or which we've already talked about. So now let's deal with the cerebrum. Let's deal with the cerebellars, those that help go to the cerebellum. So we have a superior cerebellar, superior cerebellar artery, and then there is 2 inferior cerebellars. There is an anterior, because in anatomy we don't use words we don't need, anterior, inferior cerebellar, a period artery, and then we have right here the posterior inferior cerebellar. Posterior inferior cerebellar, okay? A period artery. Now, we have a couple more minor things I want to do. One more here, and then I'm going to go back up near the circle. And we have this guy here, the one down the middle. This is the spinal artery. Okay. Now, I said we have one more major vessel that I haven't done yet, which is not part of the circle of Willis. That's why I'm waiting till now to talk about it, is this guy right here. This is the middle cerebral. It is not part of the circle of Willis. Cerebral artery. Okay, so this gets our vessels of the circle of Willis done. Very short, simple, sweet. What I recommend is to draw this until you have it down pat. If you can draw it out like this, label it, draw it out, label it, draw it out, label it. I, as a student, would just, what we would do is we would get our hands on a whiteboard and we would draw on it until we just had it down. We would just draw on it so many times with our color markers and things like that till we had it drawn out so many times that we knew it. But this is the level I had to know it at for a human anatomy class. There might be a few extra vessels that you can add to this. Of course, there are things like ophthalmic arteries, things like that, which I'm not going into here, but you may have to. But this concludes our video. video on the circle of Willis. If there are other anatomical videos you would like to see me make topics on, please let me know in the comments, and please just give me a like, and don't forget to follow, like, subscribe. Let me know what you like to see. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.